Hello and welcome to Talk West Ham, the show where you are in charge. Well, you're not actually. Me and Gonzo are. The show where you're in control. Well, you're not actually. Me and Gonzo still are. But it's your opinions. It's not mine and Gonzo's opinions tonight. It's all about you. You in the live chat, get your opinions up. Not your questions, your opinions. That's what we're after. And we're going to be talking to a few West Ham fans we've got waiting backstage with a few things to get off their chest tonight. We started this in 2016, Gonzo, 4 years ago. We've had a bit of issues. I say issues. I got a new computer and it doesn't allow us to use OBS to have a third guest. So we're switching over. We're bringing people back. Are you looking forward to tonight's show?
Very much so, mate. Although we've lost, remember the old theme tune? We've no theme tune yet, so maybe we need to work on that, or maybe I'll just sing at the start.
Anyway, you've met the guests, Gonzo. Are you looking forward to them? Are you looking forward to hearing
Very much so. Very
brilliant.
much so.
Right, in the live chat, if you've got any comments, get them up. If you want to interact with the guest, you're welcome. Put your comments up. And if there's any questions for the actual guest that we've got on the screen, not myself and Gonzo, put them up and we'll ask them to them as well. So we're going to drag in our first guest tonight. We've got Mike with us. Mike, how you doing?
How you going, guys? You all good?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you. What have you come to discuss tonight for us, Mike?
So, yeah, there's a lot of things to discuss at the moment, isn't there? I guess one of the things at the minute is, the Tarkowski incident and the whole thing that's going on, or the player that shan't be named. I understand where the whole not spending 40 million came from. That kind of makes sense because of the predicament we're in. But the problem is we just don't have any idea of what we're doing in the market. We have no scouting system, bar one scouts. We don't have the analytics because it all got ripped down once Pellegrini left. And we also lean on people that know stuff in our own fan base. From the board, they reach out and they're asking those guys to help out find targets. And it's not how professional clubs run. We don't run professionally. And when people call us tin pot, it's really now starting to stick, and it is quite true.
Is it concerning for you, Mike, though, that we've only got a week and a half till the transfer window shuts? We know that. Was there 10 days to go? The transfer rumours are heating up somewhat since yesterday's show with TalkSport. There's names getting dropped out there. Sky Cava putting out a very detailed offer, if you like, on a centre-back, which, going by your reaction, you've seen that offer. It's a very West Ham offer. For you that don't know, it's 18. It's about £20 million, but we're paying over 6 years specifically.
Yeah, 22 million, £11 million with bonuses over 6 years. It's so. I get there's the immortalisation part of triple transfers. So the 6 years actually isn't as embarrassing as it sounds, because that's how it works, right? But the embarrassment is, it seems like we've seen Leicester have gone in for a bid. So we've gone, well, Leicester have done their due diligence. We'll do the same. It's not that we've looked at that player and said, that's what we need. It's purely we've just aimed the scattergun, seen what's floated to the top. And even if it hasn't floated to the top, we've just taken a punt on something we've seen someone else do.
Is it quite concerning, though? Because I don't know too much about him, but I do know he's a bit different to James Tarkowski. They're both different centre-backs. So how can you go from type A centre-back to type B centre-back? I struggle to believe that Tarkowski and Moyes' number one target and Fofana is his number two target, because they're just not the same. If you want you don't go from a fast-paced striker to a target man as your second choice, do you?
No, it's as if we've just literally got a call from an agent saying this kid might be available. So we've just taken a punt on it. It seems like a Sullivan deal, not a Moyes deal. Moyes seems to be pretty particular. We don't always agree on what he calls quality. But regardless, he spends hours and hours and hours delving into a player. This doesn't fit that at all. It's just a pure wing and a prayer. And as you say, we've gone from Tarkowski, which is an old-fashioned, proper centre-half, who's big and strong, to this young, agile, fast centre-half, which is more in the mould of Diop than in the English style, which apparently we're looking at. So why would we change? Surely Joe Worrell is someone you would go for because that's English, right? So the change just doesn't fit. It's just all over the place.
Just as a broad question, Mike, what would you like to see us get in the transfer window before it closes? What type of players, what positions are you hoping we get in?
Left back, quite frankly. Left back is the priority. It's been the priority since last year. Pellegrini tried to get one, couldn't get one. Then it came to January, we went after a right back rather than a left back. It's always fullbacks is always a problem. We've done 6 million is our biggest transfer on a left back in 10 years. We spent 16 million on fullbacks in 10 years. You know, Everton spent 16 million on Senior, for God's sake. That's one fullback in 1 year. We've done that over 10. It's just we don't value positions from goalkeeper up to centre midfield. Anything after that is where we're willing to splash cash. It's just not sustainable, and it's just not how you build a squad.
Gonzo, you've been sitting there quietly. Have you got anything you'd like to add to Mike's comments?
Well, I'd like to know who this rumour is. Let's just assume there are other people watching that, like me, don't know this latest rumour. You were speaking like a couple of people who know some details there about this centre-back who's the polar opposite of James Tarkowski. Who is it? What's the rumour? Who are we bidding to pay for over 6 years?
I'll leave this to you, Mike, because I will vouch for Mike on Twitter. Mike, you're good at Twitter. You know your stuff.
Well, what's Mike's Twitter handle?
It's mainly because I talk to Jonesy, right? So Jonesy knows his stuff, and then I kind of follow on from him.
What's your Twitter handle, Mike?
So it's, I can't even remember my Twitter handle, to be honest. I'll post it afterwards. It's fine. But yeah, he's young, he's agile, he's good, quick pace, good ball player and defender, but he's not what we're supposed to be after. He's not a Moyes player. When you think of what a Moyes player is, Fofana just isn't that, because he likes big, strong, robust centre backs. You know, Tarkowski is the epitome of that. He's not that player. You know, someone who arguably we probably should look at, but again, it's not his player is Todibo, who Everton are looking at the moment. Available from Barcelona, probably about just over 20 million euros, or give or take. Getting to be cheaper, arguably as good. But again, we don't seem to have a strategy as to what we want to play. And unless we know the style we want to play, going for players seems a bit irrelevant because we don't have a style. So how can you buy players if you don't know what style you're going to play in the first place? It's just the blind leading the blind.
Mike, I think someone's wanting to look into your crystal ball here. James is asking, how many players will we get before the close of the window?
To be honest, I think it could matter. If we keep Rice, I reckon we'll get 1, maybe 2 players on loan. If we sell Rice, then we'll probably get 4 in. I think we're not buying anyone unless we sell Rice. I don't necessarily believe the 30 million they're saying is there. I just think we would have bought someone by now. And it doesn't seem logical. It's all down to Moyes. It just seems a bit of a push from Sullivan, especially after what he was saying the other day.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the live chat, sorry, just commenting on Joe Rodon there. You mentioned him, Mike. What do you make of Joe Rodon? Would you like to see him come in?
Yeah, there's a point made earlier as well about his injuries. He's only 22 and he's had quite a few ankle injuries. And, you know, do we want another kind of Andy Carroll type, another Wilshere? You know, he's young. They could not happen again. But we have such a problem with players being persistently injured. Do we want to invest, 12 to 15 million on a player that, could be knackered in 6 months' time and out for a good level of time? It's a good player, but it's a risk if you look at the injuries and you look at our record with injuries.
Gonzo, anything you'd like to add? I've got one more question for Mike, but anything you'd like to add, Gonzo, before Mike disappears?
Just on Joe Rodon there, the suggestion is that we'll get him next year. You won't get him next year. If he stays fit, you won't get him. He's brilliant. He's absolutely outstanding. And this is the one chance to get him. And you've alluded to this previously about other players in the past year. You get one sort of shot at this. You mentioned it about James Maddison. Danny Ings. There you go. This is it. You get him now and you take the risk. Otherwise, somebody else goes and gets him for a lot more money next year. And he will be too good for West Ham by that point.
Mike, last question for you. It's coming in from Richard Connor. Richard says, do we take Chelsea players in exchange or do we go to the market?
Part of me says no, purely because I don't see much value in the Chelsea players unless you're getting one of the players like Tomori. And even then, taking it on, doing a loan deal, what's the point? We're developing their player. Everyone else is going to be probably 60, 70, 80 grand a week plus as a minimum. So again, where's the value in taking one of those players in when we're saying that we're absolutely skint? It doesn't make economical sense when you can just say, take 70 million, let's say for argument's sake. That 70 million can be best used at looking at good young talent around Europe who will be on much lower wages. The actual overall spend might be more, but the wages will be much cheaper. So the ultimate gains are much more because you can then sell them on for maybe even double, maybe triple, depending on how well they do and how good the talent is.
Normally, I would say if only we lived in an ideal world. We don't live in one of those. Mike's not even talking about an ideal world here. Mike's just talking about a normal football club world. We don't even live in one of them either, unfortunately. Mike, pleasure having you. Thank you very much for calling in.
Thanks, Mike.
Right, Gonzo, how was Mike? You happy? You good? You feeling
well, he looked an awful lot like David Tennant. I was glad Mrs. Gonzo didn't walk in during that. She might have got a bit excited. He made a lot of good points, didn't he? I thought at the end there as well, particularly what he was saying with regard to the high wages of bringing players in. Now, I think there's 2 points to that. Number one, we're not as skint from a wages point of view as the owner would like to have us believe. If you look at the savings, both this season and the season before last, be it a Zabaleta most recently and Sanchez, or going all the way back to Chicharito and Perez and Andy Carroll and people like that, the savings on wages have been massive. So were Ruben Loftus-Cheek to be involved in a swap deal, for instance, we could handle it from a wages perspective. But I do think it's a very, very good point and something we probably need to look at. It's just evident the cynicism that everybody's having when they're talking about what we have, what David Sullivan wants to do, and the lack of belief, really, that anybody has that we're actually going to bring anybody in. I mean, it just said it. If we sell Declan Rice, we'll bring players in. If we don't, we probably won't. Not sure I agree with that myself. I think we will. Well, I think we'll sell Declan and we'll bring in players. But I understand why he's so downbeat about it and so melancholy, really.
David Sullivan doesn't even have belief we're going to bring in new players, to be fair. I mean, it's quite hard for us not to feel confident.
If Doctor Who can't believe it, what chance the rest of us?
The one thing I will say, though, about the wages thing, I think we're still going to get that excuse. If Declan goes, I think we're going to hear very quickly that Declan was only on £30,000 a week or something like that. We're going to hear the wage thing. I aware we've cleared up wages, but I think the way they're looking at it is we used to have too much wages. We're now down at our good operating level, but there's no room to increase. So I think the wages excuse is still there. It's still up their sleeve. They use it every summer. We've not had it yet. It will be played as soon as Declan goes. That's just my prediction anyway. Anyway, are you ready for a new guest?
Yes, please.
Right. Hello, Adam. How you doing?
Evening, chapter. How are you?
Yeah.
Hello, Adam, mate.
What you come to discuss tonight with us, Adam?
A bit of a mixture of two things, really. Going over David Sullivan's call on TalkSport and a bit of a mixture, really, leading into the whole how bad the communication is at the club at the moment behind the scenes. Well, first of all, obviously, David Sullivan's gone on TalkSport. He's gone on to his favourite little pals, and Jim White, giving him the easy questions on how he's going to how things are at the moment. It's just some of the questions that he created by such a car crash of an interview. I mean, the first one is saying about basically about the infrastructure of the club or lack of it. And it's saying about that David Moyes is having to watch 18 hours of videos to scout players. And he's just trying to think, like, are you going to help the poor guy out? Are you actually going to give him some actual assistance in this? Or, I mean, as Mike was saying on the previous one there, is that maybe they are going out to contact fans. I can't verify that last little comment. So about possibly finding their own targets because Moyes probably struggling. But, and then to lead into the bit of how bad the communication is at the moment is, it's been 20 days exactly today since Grady left the club for West Brom. And it seems like, well, from all the media that's going around, only Tarkowski has been, obviously Fofana today, but it seems like the only real concrete target has been Tarkowski that whole time. And it appears like there's no backup choices. And it sounds like more, obviously we don't know who's telling the truth about this, who's actually getting the target. But it seems like Moyes has just gone head first straight into Tarkowski, and it sounds like we haven't got any backup plans. Like Mike was saying, no, apart from Fofana, it might come down to the club actually keeping quiet for a change and these targets not coming out. But it just appears that there's no communication between the manager and obviously, as David Sullivan was saying, it accidentally let slip as well. Our entire budget is £40 million to the whole world, and let everyone know this is how much we've got. You can try and get this out of us. But And then it leads into my final point about how the bad communication for the club going forward. It struck me throughout that whole David Sullivan interview that there's friction all round the back of the club. It appears that obviously Sullivan and David Moyes are going at one another. There's rumours that David Gold and David Sullivan are going at one another over the whole David Moyes being kept on last year before Pellegrini, etc. And it's just a whole mess, to be honest. I don't know if you want to
No, the one thing I'm going to pick up there, I think you made a good point about how Tarkowski is the number one target. We don't appear to have a number two target. So whose fault is this then? And in your opinion, Adam, who's at fault here? Is it David Sullivan for you've got to go get Tarkowski and that's that because that's the only one Moyes wants. You have to go back your manager. Or is it a bit of blame on David Moyes saying, well, you need to have a second choice here. You need to have a backup one. It's just very naive to have one guy and one guy only.
Well, exactly. It falls down to we'll never actually know who's telling the truth, who's actually got the target. For all we know, David Moyes could have had 3-4 targets that we don't know about, and David Sullivan's obviously not gone to get them. We only know what's actually come out in the media, but it appears from David Moyes' interviews that he really wants Tarkowski, and he's making a point of saying, "I want this guy," and obviously we're not going to get him, but. In my opinion, this whole 40 million for Tarkowski is wrong anyway, because that's a whole budget on one player, and you probably need a backup striker, a left back, a centre back, probably that's even before Rice goes. It's just a whole drama of problems, and you just think if any of those players like Rice, Souček, etc., get injured, it's relegation for certain for me.
Gonzo, anything you'd like to add? Anything you'd like to question Adam on?
Yeah, well, it's just really not question, but to comment on the more than one choice, really. I don't imagine for a moment that David Moyes highlighted just one player. I would imagine he did have a second choice and a third choice. It's just human nature to do that anyway. What I do find puzzling in this, that the game hasn't moved on sufficiently quickly to allow us to move on to our second choice because the bidding has been so marginally, so incrementally small that we haven't been able to find out and get the final bid rejected to enable us to move on to the next one. 27 million, 30 million, 33 million, and dragging on massive gaps between each bid as well. It's not like consecutive days where actually we get to a point at the start of the week where we start bidding. By the end of the week, we know we can't afford him. No, we're not getting him. Okay, let's move on to target number 2. It still feels as if that particular story still has a little way to run. And I think while there's hope there, maybe we don't move on to the next target, but suspicious me suspects that it is being dragged out on purpose, basically.
Do you agree with that, Adam? It's been dragged out on purpose?
Yes and no to an extent, because obviously I do agree that obviously it has been dragged out, because I do think that Moyes is basically blinkers on. He wants Tarkowski, end of story. But at the same time, I've still got to think. I'm thinking throughout this whole process. Like I said a minute ago, it's 20 days since Grady's gone. How long does it really take to actually wrap up a player? I mean, it falls back under this failure to communicate, I believe, between Sullivan, Gold and David Moyes. I mean, at the end of the day, if David Moyes wants this player, back your man and get him, rather than say we spent 20 wasted days. And throughout this whole saga, it's been made clear throughout whoever you believe in the media that actually Tarkowski doesn't want to move down south anyway. So it comes down to who you believe, really. Is it down to, are you going to go for the Dithering Dave nickname that comes around, or are you going to go with the track record of the board of targets and failing to land them?
Yeah, Alex is asking why I keep giggling at when you were talking, Adam. I did keep giggling, but it's because it's genuinely funny now. When someone says stuff back to you about what's going on at West Ham, it starts to amuse me. Just the fact that our owner went on TalkSport yesterday mugging the manager off. The manager's got one target and one target only. The owner doesn't go get him because he doesn't think it's good value. Is it fair for David Sullivan to... Adam, is it fair for David Sullivan to value Tarkowski, or does he just have to pay whatever it takes to get Moyes in? And if he overpays, and it's sort of on David Moyes' head a little bit.
Yeah, it's who can pass the blame, really, isn't it? It's just a game. Who can like edge away from the blame a bit more? I mean, I felt like the whole TalkSport, as I was saying about breakdown in communication, it really felt like David Sullivan was really trying to throw Moyes under the bus. Like, if this transfer goes tits up, it's Moyes' fault. He said he wants him, blah blah blah. And then that was going to go on to my final point I was going to mention, is that because it appears there's so much breakdown in communication across the club. I mean, regarding Grady didn't want to sell him, or Tarkowski if he eventually signs, if Rice eventually goes, blah, blah, blah. Will Moyes last the season? Because it just seems like there's so much friction in behind the background. Obviously, we don't know the full story, but we're just going by the media, and it sounds like everyone's at each other's throats over these transfers, and it really doesn't seem like a healthy working environment.
We've got Paul here. He says, no manager is focused on one player. You have a plan of options, but your board needs to explore more than one option at the time. Sullivan cannot multitask and of. I think that's fair. I do think you should be pursuing more than one player. So this player one falls down, you're already halfway into negotiations with player two, so it's pretty quick to get something wrapped up. Adam, we've got a couple of things coming in here for you. I'll grab your opinion on one or two of them. Graham's just saying that we need one big signing a season who we won't get. And then we've got Ruben saying, I'll get your opinion on this one, Adam. It says, pretty sure the Red Bull Leipzig model isn't selling your best players and signing no one. What do you make of it, though? Because David Moyes has been very prominent on wanting the Red Bull model structure at West Ham. Couldn't really be a million miles away from it.
Right now, and based on all the rumours that everyone's at each other's throats, absolutely 100 million miles away. I mean, that's the one thing I always admire about the Red Bull setup, is just that everyone follows the same page. Everyone knows where they're going. They know what they're going to sign. They know who's coming through, who they might target. It just seems like the organisation is worlds apart from West Ham compared to where we are at the moment. I mean, Paul, as David Sullivan's quoted as saying that Moyes is sitting watching videos for hours on end rather than having scouts and analysts to actually help him out in that regard. And I mean, you can't compare West Ham and Red Bull Leipzig. As I've said on Twitter numerous times, in the whole 10 years that Gold and Sullivan have owned West Ham, Red Bull Leipzig have gone from the German 5th division to the Champions League multiple years in a row. And it's just, you can't compare the clubs, can you? It's just complete worlds apart.
Yeah. Anyway, Adam, thank you very much for popping on. We appreciate it as always.
Cheers, Adam.
In your future. Right, Gonzo, are you hungry for another one?
Yeah, what an excellent point, by the way. How far
Red Bull have
travelled as a club. What?
We don't have any points this season.
Absolutely. But he's right, though, isn't he? He's right. In the 10 years that they've been in charge, that club has gone from there to there. It's crazy.
You don't even have to look at Leipzig, though. I'm pretty certain. I think Southampton might have been in League One at the time. They're arguably above us in the Premier League.
I'm sure Leeds were.
Wolves and Leicester have then gone on to compete for European football and stuff. It's not great. There's good examples in European football. There's also good examples just on these shores as well. Anyway, are you ready for another guest?
Yeah, absolutely.
I am feeling, being Scottish, I'm not going to bring in another Scotsman. I think we need to get a bit more variety of accents on the show tonight. Would you agree with that?
Yes, indeed.
Are you ready?
Oh, yeah, I am.
Right, Tommy, how you doing?
Not too bad, gentlemen. And yourselves?
Very well, thank you, mate. Very well.
What you come to talk about tonight, Tommy?
Really just how kind of down I feel at the moment. It's related to Sullivan's interview on TalkSport yesterday, but it's not really specifically about anything in particular that he spoke about, because I know we've all kind of been ranting on Twitter about it and about everything he said specifically. But after my initial kind of anger and kind of distress kind of faded away a little bit, I've just been thinking about the general situation really at the club, and that we're still in this situation 10 years on from when they took over. And it is actually quite depressing because we shouldn't be in this situation. I think any owners with a shred of competence would have moved us on to some point by now. Now, I'll speak specifically about Sullivan, but really I'm talking about the three of them. You know, I'm talking about GSB, but just for ease of conversation, I'll say Sullivan. But his tone really was what really got to me in that interview. It was the tone of a man who was incapable of learning anything, was incapable of growing into a role, into his position, of becoming better. And that's really the thing that got to me, because now I've been GSB out for some time, but I think that really cemented it, because it's clear to me that they can't learn, they can't grow, they can't improve. And, you know, like, I commend Hammers United for everything they've done. And I know one of their main aims was to try to reach out to the board and have discussions and try to appeal to them to do the right thing and to change the way they operate. And I'm at the point now where I think you're flogging a dead horse, to be honest. The tone deafness, which I know has been spoken about before, this isn't new, but the tone deafness of that interview, where everything was everybody else's fault. It was Moyes, it was Pellegrini, it was the fans, it was COVID, it was everything but them. And that's really why I think that we are at the point now where it has to be GSB out or nothing. I don't think we can reach them. I don't think we can get through to them, because I think they're incapable of that kind of humility or self-reflection. I mean, I think if you were, for example, to take someone who's, say, a very successful businessman, but who doesn't know anything about football, and you were to just plant him in the job and say, okay, you're chairman of West Ham now. That person, if they were intelligent, conscientious, ambitious, careful of, capable of self-reflection, of growing, learning, I think if you were to give them 10 years, I think in the end you would have actually someone who is a competent chairman, who has learned the ropes, who has learned from their mistakes. And surely they would make some early on, particularly. They would have to learn some lessons the hard way, for sure. But I think at the end of those 10 years, you would have a competent chairman who knew what he was doing, who would learn the ropes, learn from his mistakes, and was growing all the time in that role. I've seen none of that with Sullivan or Gold or Brady. And it's not like this is even their first rodeo. You know, they were running Birmingham for years before they even bought West Ham. They knew the ropes before they even took this club over. And for us to still be here talking about this 10 years on really just cemented it, as I said. I think we're at the point now, as long as they're in charge of this club, this is our life. If we're lucky, we'll continue to survive as a Premier League club. We may not be that lucky going forward. We've been lucky so far. We've scraped through. But for me now, it's over. You know, whatever, there was a time where I thought perhaps they were teachable. Perhaps they could grow into it and learn and be better. I think we're past that point now.
Sometimes someone says something, and I think it's Gonzo. I think you're a better place than me. I think this is your kind of conversation.
Well, I mean, he's had enough. Tommy's had enough. That much is clear. I mean, first of all, I could say with Sullivan's got no self-awareness, and that's really what you were getting in that interview. I asked yesterday why nobody had said to him, is this a good idea or is this a bad idea? Most of us don't need somebody to say that. Most of us know that blaming everybody else is a bad look. Most of us know that. Most of us are aware that if you make mistakes, you've got to have a little look at yourself. He doesn't appear to have done that, Tommy, and you're absolutely right. In terms of, and his tone of voice was very pompous in that respect, and he wasn't questioned at any point during the interview, but the interview's been done to death. The final point I'd like to pick up on is what you said about him not learning on the job, how he doesn't seem to have developed. I think that it often happens with people when they're just told yes all the time. They're surrounded by yes men or surrounded by people that never question them. They don't ever develop because they don't learn from their mistakes, because they're never told that they have made any mistakes, and they don't actually think they've made any mistakes themselves. But it reminded me of something. I used to watch Dragon's Den quite a lot, and I remember there was a time when a guy was pitching his idea to one of the dragons, and he asked the dragon, he said, what do you think you can offer me? Do you deal in this field? And the dragon, it was Duncan Bannatyne was his name, and he said, look, I'm not in that field. I don't need to be in that field. I'll tell you what I'll do if you let me invest in your company, I'll set you up in an office and I will hire the 3 best people that are experts in that field and we'll put them on the payroll. I don't have to know about it. I'll hire the right people to move your product forward. And that's at a very, very basic level. And at any point, forget the Huselos, because as Gio will often tell you, Pellegrini hired him. We also all know that it was done under duress. He did not want to hire Huselos. He did not want a director of football. He wants to be the director of football. But anybody like the Fenway Group who run Liverpool, anybody who admits that they don't know anything about football, thinks, you know what, I don't. I'm going to run this company. I'm going to take a step back. Here's my expert. I'll put him in place. He's running things. And that's what they failed to do.
Tommy, what upset me about when you were talking there was something you said. You said something like, we might scrape by this season and that's all we can hope for. Is that generally your ambition as a West Ham fan now, just to finish 17th in the league? Is that what you've been broken down into, essentially?
I think really it's more just an acceptance that this is where we're at right now. We've made no signings, barring that technically we bought Souček. But, realistically, we've made no signings. The manager clearly is very frustrated. The players are frustrated. They're not blind to all of this. They've aired their frustrations on social media. And obviously there are still serious doubts about Moyes himself. So, it's difficult to be very positive about the season outside of, yes, we're perfectly capable of surviving and still being a Premier League team next season. But it's hard to dream beyond that right now, I think.
Yeah, so Tommy, I'm just interacting with the live chat there. If you've got any questions for Tommy, get them in, and we will we'll send them over to Tommy and see what you got. The question from Gary Page though is for all of us, but for you, Tommy, I think we know the answer. And when we can go again, will you be marching?
I'll march around my house with a big GSP out banner and film it.
Brilliant. Just give me 1 second there. What's Gonzo? Have you got anything to add there? While I interact with the live chat, just give me 1 second. I've lost it.
Well, I'll tell you what I will say is what you just alluded to there. It was actually quite depressing what you said, which is pretty much what you indicated when you came on, that you'd had enough, that you were fed up, and it was a case of you don't feel that you can dream beyond just surviving, and that is sad. And I do think that's really sad.
That hurt. That hurt me the most when you were doing your speech about Sullivan. With the greatest, I mean this with the greatest respect. It's a lot of people are saying it at the minute, and it becomes like an everyday thing. But then when you said that you're sort of given up, apart from just staying in Premier League, I thought, crikey, you've got no hope anymore. You almost don't have a dream. Like
no dream.
It's like listening to yourself, Gonzo. I mean, the cup is stuff. Don't care about the cup this year, and it's very sad. It's very sad to hear people say stuff like that.
Yeah, but I don't think they hear it. Certainly, if it does, it goes in one ear and out the other. And I don't think they know the impact that they've had on the fans. And like they're very lucky that there are empty stadiums right now and that large gatherings aren't allowed, because they would be made very aware. And I think it would be far greater than we saw before. After last March and during the Burnley game for that. So unfortunately, I think this is our life now, and why I'm completely and utterly GSB out, because I think the only way potentially forward for us, although there's no guarantees, whoever takes over would be brilliant, but I mean we'd take anything really now, because can't be much worse, because they're just completely incompetent. I think ultimately it comes down to they don't have the clout to ever take us beyond where we are right now. I think even if they were a bit better at their jobs, they would still be very limited in where they could take us, and it wouldn't be much more than what we've got now. I think that ultimately is the problem. I think a Premier League club now that has real ambition has to have real money behind it, and I don't think they have it or will ever have it. So
excellent. Yeah, well said.
We've got some questions for you, Tommy, and people are changing the topic for you. There's a couple of fun ones in here, a couple that might get you back up. We'll start with a fun one. Best Irish pub name?
Oh, geez, there's a question for someone. I'm letting the side down because I don't even go to pubs, believe it or not. I very rarely even drink. So I'm letting my whole country down. Oh, of course, it's Ray, a pub question.
Where are you from, Tommy?
I'm from Tipperary, but I live in Kerry.
Ah,
But,
okay.
yeah. I don't know what agree. I'm sorry I've let you down, Ray. I
It's
suspect
all right, it's
Ray.
all right.
I suspect Ray is looking at opening an Irish team bar in Liverpool, and he's trying to get a name for it.
That's what Ray gets for trying to be clever with these questions.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Declan being an Irishman?
He's not. He's been stripped of all rights, all citizenship. He's not even allowed to come here for the summer. So Declan, can take a running jump as regards Ireland now.
I like Tommy.
We've got another one here for you. Happy Hammer 82 says, would you prefer getting a couple of new signings in mid-table, or would you like to see more youth players but we finish 16th or 17th?
Okay, so guaranteed survival. Yeah, I mean, 16th, 17th or mid-table, realistically, is there much difference in your head, really? It's
A
having
win and a draw,
yeah,
probably.
Yeah, couple of extra wins. I love the academy. I always have. It's kind of always been part of the heart and soul of West Ham and what we're about. And I hate that we've gotten away from that. And I would love to see some of, and we do have some seemingly very promising youngsters in the club right now, and I would love to see a couple of them get the chance. I really would. And if it means we finish a couple of places lower and we find a couple of gems from the youth team, I'd be all for that, to be honest.
Yeah, right. I've got a rhetorical question. Don't worry, I'm about to answer this for Tommy. Gordon says, is this not the best run of top flight results we've ever had? No more yo-yo club. People forget the days when we were not a mainstay in the top league. And I think that's a fair comment. I do think that's a fair comment to give Gordon credit. But this one is your final question, Tommy, before we let you disappear. Chinese or Indian? Graham,
he's Irish, he's already said.
Chinese for me. No, I have to, always Chinese for me, I have to say. Now, I have to preface that with my favorite meal of all time is a chicken korma. I do absolutely love a great korma, but overall, it has to be Chinese. It's my go-to takeout, I'm afraid, yeah.
Good man.
Sorry,
I knew you'd be a good.
It's fine, mate. It's fine. You don't go to the pub anyway, so you got to go to the Chinese, really, didn't you?
Yeah, you have to try the cream of some young guy.
I knew you wouldn't let me down, Tommy.
Hey, Tommy, I'm far too young for that.
Anyway, Tommy, thank you very much appreciated, and hopefully we'll see you on again in the future.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks very much for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers, mate. Cheers, Tommy.
Cheers.
All the best, mate.
Right, Gonzo, we've got one more backstage waiting. How's it going? You happy?
Yeah, I am. I think we'll see Tommy again, quite frankly. I like him.
You enjoying the return of top West Ham?
I do. I like it. I do like it. And I've got to say, it's all run very smoothly, I think.
I think so. No complaints yet. I don't think I've seen any complaints. If you're enjoying top West Ham as well, please drop a like on the video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, click that subscription button. Become a subscriber of Hammer's Chat. And we're going to get our last guest on, and then we're going to go to live chat. So in the live chat, get questions in for our next guest, and then start putting your comments up about anything you want to talk about, and we're going to read through them. We might discuss them, but we probably won't. We'll just put them up and read them out. This is your show. Get your content up. But Charlie, how you doing?
How you doing, gents? You all right?
Hello, Charlie.
You are a Twitcher.
Apparently, I'm a Twitcher.
You are a Twitcher.
That's a condition I haven't got.
No.
Promote yourself, Charlie. What's your Twitch? Where can people find you on Twitch?
Barely Average Gamer _ on Twitch.
Is that your, sorry, Gio, is that you mentioned about leaving comments on YouTube? What's that name, the handle there? When you leave a comment on YouTube?
Charlie Woodgate.
Okay. I don't know if it was the same one. But
yeah, Charlie George Woodgate, yeah.
Okay, lovely. Cheers,
anyway,
mate.
If you're on Twitch, go find Charlie. But Charlie, what have you got to talk about tonight?
So, I assumed probably rightly that most of the discussion was going to be on Sullivan and GSB out and his car crash of an interview. So I thought I'd go for a different topic, and was very much based on one of Gonzo's videos that he'd done in the week on the forum channel, very admirably defending David Moyes, which is not an easy task, I don't think.
Oh,
But,
yes, sorry, yes. Yeah, it was on me.
But,
No, not really. Sorry, carry on, Charlie.
No. So if you was on Twitter, if anyone's on Twitter, and I was on Twitter and social media during that Arsenal game, everyone knew what was coming. Everyone knew what was coming. I knew what was coming because we'd all seen it before. With the lack of substitutions, getting outclassed by the opposition manager. We'd seen it at Newcastle. We saw it at Wolves the end of last season. We saw it at Tottenham at the end of last season. And for the Arsenal game, getting into the 83rd minute, was 1-0 down. Substitution then comes on. Newcastle, it was 67 minutes, but by that point, we'd already been 1-0 down for over 10 minutes. He's so slow at reacting. And the guy's got an in-game management skills of a goalpost. It's and it sounds really harsh, but we need to move on and just get rid of him. I think you referred to it, Gonzo, as which I think might have been stretching it a little bit, was sensational stuff at the end of last season, and one of the best teams in the Premier League.
I said our form was very good.
Are you coming on here to call like Gonzo?
No. It was a great video.
Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. You carry on, Charlie.
No, he's having a kick. He's having a kick.
On my friend.
Hold on, what? Everyone's having a drink.
No, it was a great video. I just didn't agree with the vast majority of it. But
well, listen, I could spend ages, but I'm quite happy to answer it, by the way. But this is your opportunity to speak on here, and I speak on the on the videos every day.
Yeah, let me just clarify here, Charlie. Are you saying we need to get rid of David Moyes like now?
My position would be, give him the hard games, give him up to Liverpool, and then when we're past Liverpool at 1 or 2 points, 0 points maybe, quite possibly, then that's a perfect excuse for the board to get rid of him and get someone else in. I know the argument's going to be, well, who are we going to get? The choice is either Chris Hughton or David Moyes. I really can't see that being the case. You're telling me a Premier League club in London that paid their last manager, our last manager, as the 8th or 10th or 11th highest paid manager in the world, can't get a better manager than David Moyes or Chris Hughton. I mean, there's obviously Eddie Howe, and the names I'm about to mention are not my ideal choice. My ideal choice for 6 months the last year has been Ancelotti. That's obviously passed now, and no chance of getting him out of Everton. But we could get a Howe. I think we could persuade Dyche, who tactically outclassed David Moyes at the end of last season with that 1-0 victory. We was a better team. We played nice football. We lost, which is kind of the theme of our games recently. But we could get who else is there? But even in the lower leagues, people have spoken about Bowyer and Gareth Ainsworth and those sorts of managers. Are they ideal? No. Would they give me a bit of hope over a Diver and Dave the Dinosaur?
He's put an extra D on there.
Alliteration. But it's got to give us. There's got to be something better than David Moyes or Chris Hughton out there that we can get.
I'm surprised. I've always thought I was quite anti-Moyes, Charlie, but you've upstaged me here. I feel like I need to just
go rage on Twitter.
No, I don't know. I'm a bit surprised. Are you not prepared to give him? I know you said the Liverpool game, but
I'll give him the Chelsea game because we lost the Liverpool game.
Yeah, but sorry, this season though, are you completely done with Moyes, or is there any way he can sort of claw it back for you?
Not really. David Moyes epitomises the absolute problems in this club right now. He is cheap. He's the last resort. He's a yes man. I mean, the fact that we sacked him 12 months prior to going grovelling back to him on our knees, asking him to come back, and didn't even have the self-value to say to David Sullivan, no, go fuck yourself. I don't know if I'm supposed to swear or not. But
carry on. We don't give a fuck.
Fair enough. The fact that he didn't have the self-value to say that to Sullivan tells you everything. And the reason is because no one else will employ him. No one else would give him a job. And if we sacked him, there'd be no Premier League teams giving him a job. He'd be lucky to get a Championship job. And I think if he may get a League One job.
He's done his job though, Charlie. His job twice was to keep us in the Premier League, and he's done that both times.
He's done, and yeah, I'll give him that. He's done the bare minimum of keeping us up. But I still maintain, you pluck any manager out of League One, League Two. I mean, I watched the FA Cup game with Hashtag the other day. You put Hashtag manager with that squad last season, he would have kept us up. That squad is by no means a 17th place squad in the Premier League. We've said it for years, but so it's like if you do GCSEs and get an E, you didn't fail, but it wasn't exactly great, and you pretty much you did the bare minimum. You scraped through.
Yeah, interesting. If you've got any questions for Charlie, get them in. I'm going to put in some comments rather than questions because you've stirred the live chat up. To be honest with you, Charlie. Adam saying I got to give Moyes some slack on this one. Too soon to sack him. And then you've got Andy Walsh. It keeps moving. Andy Walsh said that nobody would work for them idiots in charge. Then we've got Alex. The job is a poison chalice while the board are there. No manager other than a desperate, washed-up manager dying for work will take the job. Graham Dunn, I mean, this is a good question. Would you have Big Sam back if Moyes went? We're gauging your barometer of managers here.
No, I wouldn't. I just don't see the point. It's going back to an old past love that didn't work out, and I'd rather us take a risk on. There's obviously comments saying no one would work for Golden Sullivan. You're not telling me if Lee Bowyer was offered a chance to manage in the Premier League. Lee Bowyer is now by means the best manager in the world, or Gareth Ainsworth, or what's the Luton ex-Luton manager Nathan Jones. I think he's back there now. I'd rather have them than David Moyes or the Cowley brothers.
Miggsy, that's not Miggsy. Miggsy's ran away from me. Ignore that one. I'm trying to click on Miggsy here. Miggsy says Moyes has turned an unfit, lazy squad into a team that runs for 90 minutes. Angus says I agree, but everyone has to go. I assume he's meaning Moyes and the board.
Yeah.
Slim Reaper says Moyes deserves credit. We would have told Sullivan where to go. You've really wound people up here, good and bad though. Someone did ask, it's disappeared. This live chat's a bit different to normal YouTube. GSB out says the problem is the board. We put the blame onto Moyes when it's the board's fault. Guardiola couldn't do well under our board.
I think David Moyes gets away with a hell of a lot because the board will get all the slack. I've seen on Twitter after performances, board getting blamed for losses.
So where do you sit then? This will be interesting because I'm finding it hard to completely disagree with you here, Charlie, because I'm not fully Moyes out, but I can agree with a lot you're saying. I can see what Gons is. I'm sort of somewhere in the middle, if you like, probably more to Charlie's side. But where do you sit with the transfer thing then at the minute? All this transfer stuff's going on. We've heard what Sullivan said. We've not got any players in. There's a blame game on. Some are blaming the manager, some are blaming the board. What's your opinion on that?
I think that's something we're never going to know, are we? The true ins and outs of who is it? Moyes being stubborn? Is it Sullivan? From Sullivan's interview, it sounded after what I've just said. I'm about to say that I think I agree with Moyes. Sullivan sounded shocked that David Moyes is turning around and saying, "No, I don't want this random South American that I've never heard of. I want a player that I can think I know will do a job in the championship." I'm thinking ahead of myself. But do a job in the Premier League and in this squad, why take a risk? So on that matter, I agree with David Moyes, I think.
Yeah, Hayden says the only problem with Moyes is the in-game management, but he saved us 2 times now. He deserves a full season. That's where I kind of sit with David Moyes. I think he does deserve the full season. He deserves backing in the transfer window, what he's not getting. I actually think he's getting let off with a lot in the transfer window, David Moyes. I do think he is. We know he takes his time to target players. I think he's a bit unadventurous in the transfer market, if you like. David Moyes, he knows what's going on in England, and I get an impression he knows what's going on in England only, and therefore we can only look at players based on these shores. And the problem is, the good players in Championship have been hoovered up already while we've been sort of dragging our feet a little bit. We've sort of missed most of the good players.
I think the crux of my argument would be I've watched one of your videos earlier on in the week and other stuff on Twitter and podcasts. The crux of my argument would be, if you asked 10,000 people, West Ham fans, neutral football fans, probably most of the players, probably even the boardroom, do you see David Moyes as being a long-term future of West Ham and being a long-term success at West Ham? I think you'd get 80, 90, 95% saying no, but he deserves a full season because he kept us up just twice. Well, if there's not the long-term plan, why are we postponing the misery and the inevitable and just let's look for a long-term plan?
I get that, Charlie, but the problem is the board don't have a long-term plan for themselves. They're here for one thing only, and that is to make sure that come May we remain in the Premier League. They don't care about next season. The board don't care about 21, 22 yet. That's why I think the temptation to sell Declan Rice is there, because they're not going to be here in 3 years' time when Declan Rice is possibly going to be one of the best defensive midfielders in the world of football. Should he go and reach his potential, the board will be gone by then. They know that. Got a couple of questions for Charlie. We'll then start taking your comments. Lauren says, what would be your last supper on death row?
If I've not got to deal with it the next day, then probably a greasy doner kebab and chips.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
He might get a reprieve.
Question,
would any of you be the manager of West Ham at the minute?
I mean, he's getting paid more than me, so yeah, probably.
Oh yeah, £2-3 million a year, we'd all would, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I think I'd do it for free, to be honest with you. We've got a comment here from Mark Sherbin. We like Mark on this channel. He says, I never wanted Moyes, but his hands are tied by GSB. We can't keep knocking bloke when he has these idiots above them. He deserves a season. The performance at Arsenal weren't too bad. Gonzo, is there anything you'd like to add before we start wrapping?
Well, yeah. Look, first of all, I don't particularly want to be the poster boy for David Moyes as the latest messiah.
Right. It's the problem when you do YouTube videos. I was a poster boy for Coyote, for getting rid of Czech Coyote.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
for about a season after, he'd have a good game for Palace. Some people would tweet me, "You watching Czech Coyote tonight?"
I know. But Charlie mentioned the Cowley brothers. Before we brought Moyes in, I said we should be going for them. All right, I'm just dealing with the situation that we're in, and unfortunately, Dice. You said surely we could get Dice. No. We actually approached him. We tried to get him. We couldn't prize from Burnley. And when we asked if Dyche would try and put pressure on Burnley to get him to leave, he said no. He didn't fancy it. You would be absolutely amazed, Charlie, at the amount of managers that turned us down. You'd be astounded the amount of players who we've approached their agents. And I'm talking now who have turned around and said they don't want to come to West Ham. We do have a real problem now with what you're saying is, which I heard you. You don't care. You'd get Bowyer in or Ainsworth or anything like that. So it sounds to me like you're saying anyone but Moyes. I'm not there yet. But there are 30 or 40 people I would take ahead of Moyes. But I'm not in the anyone but Moyes camp yet.
Mark Ring asks you, would you take Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Abraham and 30 million for Rice? That's for yourself, Charlie.
On permanence, you'd have to think about it because it gives us two positions what we need for, well, a position that would replace Rice and an extra position. If we're not going to spend any money, then you'd have to think about it. I don't think it's enough.
I think I know your answer to this one, Charlie, but it's been asked for you. Alex says, would you swap Moyes for Scott Parker?
Yep. But he's just signed a new contract, so...
Brilliant. Anyway, Charlie, listen, thank you very much for coming.
Cheers,
on.
mate.
I appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. Cheers, Charlie. Hopefully see you again soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, mate.
Right. Live chat. Get your comments in, not questions. Me and Gonzo do not want questions. That's the cup of tea stuff. We would like your comments on anything West Ham. We've got another 10 minutes before we disappear. Get your comments in. Subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. James Fever here is saying, Di Canio is a man. If he was in there, he'd be in their faces and make them work hard. He'd be respected and know what the fans want. Bit risky, isn't it, that one? You're not a Di Canio fan.
Well, I damn fine player. Absolute disaster. Read what happened at Sunderland. Read about the play. It went absolutely mad. The guy. If you think that Paolo Di Canio, sorry James, but I'm not. Listen, you made your comment and you're very, very welcome. But the thought of Di Canio and the Sullivan, it would be a disaster. It'd be a recipe. It'd be even worse than it is now, I'm afraid.
Colin saying if we're on 0 points when we play Fulham, would you still expect to see Moyes on the touchline? Using live chat to get your answers in. This is your show. This is mine and Gonza's show. This is for you guys. Lee says players, managers would only come to us if the owners change and things look positive. At the moment, things look as grey as the clouds today. Wasn't that bad up here, to be honest with you.
You got off lucky.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Ray says he wants to see a Moyes game plan and a plan thought out the game. Throughout the game, perhaps. I think that's my frustrating thing. Is his in-game management. That's just a thing that irritates me more than anything, to be honest with you. Someone did put in a super chat earlier, and I missed it, and I can only apologise. So if it was you, can you please say it was you? Because your name will trigger something. Because I want to say thank you. So if it was yourself that popped it in, get it up as well. Vermeer says it's pointless dreaming of new managers when we have so many bigger issues in our club. GSB out says the board will look to sack him fairly quick so they can blame the unrest onto him. That's obviously referring to Paulo Di Canio. Gary, would you be happy if we kept Grady and Jeremy and not got anyone in, or would we still not be happy? We still wouldn't be happy, would we?
Well, no, 'cause it's an unhappy place to be, and it's not all based on players or the manager, or there's a whole lot wrong, and fixing one thing won't sort it out.
Metal in both legs is the person that put in the super chat £5. Thank you very much, Metal.
Thank you.
Legs. Much appreciated. £5 into the biscuit kitty. I'm going to get some hobnobs. Adam said he liked Faguli. So did I, to be honest with you.
He likes you too, Adam.
We haven't scored against Wolves in the last 2 seasons, which worries me. Sorry, hang on. Malcolm says Nolan and Pierce are already on the coaching staff. Would they do a better job?
I wanted to see Nolan. I was disappointed.
I'll say no to Pierce, by the way. I will say no to Pierce. I wouldn't want to see Pierce as the manager. No.
He's had his chance to prove it. But
some people are just good coaches. Gareth Thomas says autumn is his favourite time of the year, and he's a bit of a weirdo.
Are they separate? Is he a weirdo because he likes autumn, or he likes autumn and he's a weirdo?
I think it's possibly both. You know, you should have really stipulated. Peter Cannon, I'll let you nick this one in a bit. In the bud, Gons, I think you'll know this. Do you think Rice's dip in form is a direct result of Mark Noble mentoring and Diangana's tweet, or does he just want to leave for Chelsea?
Hello, Peter. Hope you're well, by the way, mate. No, I don't think. I think he would just. I'm not even sure any of it is. I think he does want to leave. If given the chance to go to Chelsea, I think he would. I'm not gonna. He's a very, very headstrong lad, and I don't think he's going to be distracted by anything that Mark Noble says or the Diangana stuff. Maybe he's just in bad form, but I do still think he wants to go to Chelsea, and I suspect he will.
Alex is saying, when we're in the game on Sunday, would you think Alan Irvine will make his own subs? I'll tell you something, Alex. Sorry. We are recording the Wolves preview tonight for tomorrow night after this. I'm going to write that down. It's a good comment. We'll discuss it in the preview. Adam kindly put a £1 super chat in. Thank you, Adam. And he says, get yourself banana, Gio. I think I will leave.
It's right. He's never had a banana. Gio's never had a banana.
I've never had a banana. PN says, fans talk about a swap deal for Rice memories of when JD was swapped for Burrows and Marsh and a bit of cash for Chapman. Marcus said he'd have Pardew back. You're not in agreement there, are you?
About the swap deal, I remember, and actually, it was not just that. I remember how we squandered the Rio money on Titi Kamara and Rigobert. So yeah, I mean, we are very good. That's an excellent point. We're very good at wasting money. Sorry.
Essex Hammer says he's met Declan's parents in New York City. His father was adamant he would not be leaving, and he loves West Ham. I've got no doubt that he loves West Ham, Declan. None whatsoever. I have a lot of doubt, though, that he would not be leaving.
If it's any consolation, I have also heard from someone else that Declan's father has said that this season as well. I've been told that by someone I know knows his dad very well and has said that Declan's staying. So that's what I've heard. But I still believe, I'm a West Ham fan. I'm a pessimist. I still believe he's leaving.
Yeah, anyway, we're going to start wrapping this up in a minute. Just to wait there. Like the video, subscribe and all that. I'm just going to quickly get the guests in one last time to say thank you and goodbye to them. Mike, we'll start with yourself. They didn't have to stay around and listen.
I'm surprised he stayed. I thought he'd be at this or something, Mike.
Mike, did you enjoy the show? We can't hear you. You're muted.
You're muted.
I've unmuted you, I think.
Thank you for being on work calls. Everything's always on mute.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the show, Mike?
No, it's quality, lads. It's like everything everyone's saying. It's all valid. People being Moyes in, Moyes out. It's what football is, isn't it? It's opinion.
Which are you?
Personally, I'm out. I don't think he's good enough in game management. Quite frankly, and he's never going to change. But there's no point changing him until they go. It's as simple as that.
Anyway, Mike, your Twitter handle, it is MHare641. That's your Twitter handle there. So if you go follow Mike over on Twitter, if you wish. Mike, thank you once again. We'll see you in the future. Right, who do we have after that? We had Adam. Let's get Adam back on. Adam, did you enjoy the show?
Yeah, it was really good. It's good to hear different West Ham fans' opinions on this great shit show of our club at the moment.
And your Twitter handle, Adam?
Adam Brown 93.
Fantastic. Go follow Adam. Adam, thank you very much. And
thanks,
Adam.
Adam.
See you again in the future.
Cheers, mate.
And then we had
Tommy,
our favourite Irishman. We had Tommy. Tommy, did you enjoy the show?
Yeah, very good show. Especially when I was on. I thought I made a lot of great points.
It was the best part, wasn't it?
I thought so. But
I thought you would.
Quickly, if I can, just on Moyes, and I'll keep it very short, but just to stick my oar in. Not confident in him as a manager. I have my issues with him too. But the reason I wanted him here at the beginning of this season is because it's just an innate sense of fairness. The first time he came in, did what he was asked to do. Okay, it wasn't always pretty, but he kept us in the Premier League, and then he got just jettisoned. And then we bring him back in, and he does it again, and keeps us up again with some very good form right at the end of the season, post-lockdown. And I think if we'd have done that to him again, I think that would have been just an entirely shitty thing to do to someone who I think is actually a decent guy. Might not be a great manager, but he's a decent guy. So I just think, just out of a complete sense of fairness, he does deserve a chance to start a season as manager, and fingers crossed he'll do okay.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tommy. We'll
Thanks,
see you again
Tommy.
in the future. Before we get Charlie back, just want to say a very, very quick thank you to Adam. He's putting
Thanks,
a couple
Adam.
of dollars into the biscuit fund. Gonzo can afford you biscuits at the same time now.
Yeah, I'd prefer chocolate. Thank you. Just
Well,
no prawns. No prawns.
We'll get you some chocolate. Your dairy milk stuff. You like a dairy milk.
I do.
And finally, our last guest we had on the Moyes out machine, Charlie. Charlie, thank you very much for coming on.
Welcome. Just on that last point, I don't disagree that it'd be very harsh and very horrible and a shitty thing to do, but it'd still be better for the club.
One thing I will say, we have learned, Charlie, doing YouTube, myself and Gonzo, is when you have an opinion, just stick to it and don't worry. Don't justify your opinion. You don't have to. You have your opinion. You stick to it, my friend.
And
right?
I would also say that the majority, all the people that subscribe and follows, everybody, I think everyone's really nice, and people could have a disagreement of opinion, and then just, you might agree on the next subject. So you're very, very welcome, mate.
If we're lingering near the bottom of the table, come back on and say, I told you so. Right, Adam, Charlie, sorry, I'll catch you in a bit.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, mate.
And Gonzo, now there's two. Just me and you. Anyway, did you enjoy the return of Talk West?
I really did. I really, really did. I did. I'm glad. Yeah, I'm really glad this is back. Nice to see new people. Nice to hear different opinions. All good,
different
mate.
topics, different topics as well. There's a bit of Sullivan, a bit of David Moyes. The David Moyes surprised me. I wasn't expecting a Moyes out bit at the end, to be honest with you, because the season's 2 games in the league. But it was good. If you want to be on the next show, if you want to come on Talk West Ham in future, email us hammerschat@gmail.com. All you need is an opinion.
Is love.
A bit of love wouldn't go amiss, but you just need an opinion. You can use your mobile phones as well if you want to. It's that simple. Just email us hammerschat@gmail.com. In the live chat in future, keep your comments coming, not your questions, your comments. There was a lot of questions. I understand why. That's the cup of tea format. We're trying to keep that separate. This is your show, your opinion. Talk sport, but for West Ham fans. Anyway, Gonzo, I think it's time for me and you to disappear.
We got a Wolves preview to record.
We're record the Wolves preview. If you enjoyed Talk West Ham, please drop a like on it, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we shall catch you in a bit.